Johnny Arcane by Jim Nail, read by Jim Nail, Chapter 10, Division, Part 3. Mid-afternoon. Tiller Hogpen brought out the beer. It was an oatmeal stout that had just ripened, and he said this was as good a time as any to try it. The meeting had dragged on all day. By his proclamation of the winter wolves as the only banner, the mayor had inaugurated a tenuous truce. The abstainers and the non-abstainers mingled, but an air of tension remained, forcing every detail of the Springfest through a monotonous funnel of deliberation. Will the eggs be painted or dyed? Who will spread the cornmeal around the silo? What if the full moon is not visible on the eve? Will the banner pole be raised at dawn or dusk? Will the turkey slaughter be private or public? Johnny sat at a table playing barn nails with Jocko, Bearclaw, and Burleyman. He was not drinking. Jocko had his hand around a single stein of oatmeal stout. Bearclaw had 2 empties in front of him. The mayor had 5, and he was working on a 6th. There's too many rules to everything, he said. Even in this game? Asked Bearclaw. Because of the rule of 7, I can take your back stack and add it to my pile. He cupped 5 nails in his palm and slid them across the table. There's too many rules to this festival, for one thing. This is supposed to be about having a good time, welcoming the seasons. People are just superstitious. They think if we don't get every little thing right, it'll all go badly. Putting cornmeal around the silo, that's the stupidest. It occurred to Johnny that stupidest was a word the mayor would only use if he had been drinking. Why do they put cornmeal around the silo? He asked. Burleyman didn't answer. Bearclaw tossed 3 nails onto the gravel pile. The mayor doesn't like to talk about the silo. You shut up, old man. You never even tried to climb the silo. Nope, and I never will. It's your turn, Johnny. You got a square one there. Don't forget the rule about the square ones. Burleyman drank some more beer. We should have more everything in this town. Except rules, of course, interjected Bearclaw. We could have more cows. We could raise cows, just like we be raising turkeys now. What do they mean the water is going to bring poison? There's no such thing as poison. People could eat rocks if they wanted to, and it wouldn't hurt them. Wouldn't taste good, though. Humor the mayor, Johnny. You ever eat anything that was poison? Well, yes, I have. I drank some bad water once up in the mountains. It made me so sick I thought I was going to die. Well, did you die? Asked Burleyman. No, I didn't. I just shit and puked for a couple of days, and then I got better. Well, then it wasn't poison. It's only poison if it kills you. We're going to have running water in this town, and we're going to have cows. And we're going to have something else. I've been talking to Frankie Fulcrum about it. It's a secret. You want to know what it is? It's a secret, Burleyman. Don't be telling Frankie's secrets. Burleyman was quiet for a while, and they played several rounds. It looked, for a moment, like he was going to fall asleep. He listed to one side, then he sat up abruptly, I can climb the silo if I wanted to. You want to see me? Just play the game, Your Honor. Don't you be honoring me, Bear Claw. Honor? Honor? It means nothing. Bear Claw looked at Johnny and shrugged. Jocko spoke in his quiet voice. He is going to embarrass himself. We should do something. But it was too late. The mayor stood, suddenly scattering the game pieces across the table. There's going to be cows and king corn, he proclaimed. And there's going to be water. Some people at the nearby tables laughed and a few clapped. Sit down, Burley. Don't make a spectacle of yourself. I'll make a spectacle out of you, Bear Claw. I'll wrestle your arm to the tabletop. All right then. Sit down. Let's wrestle. Heads turned. Voices whispered, then spoke. The mayor's going to wrestle Bear Claw. People gathered around. Burleyman collapsed to his seat, then slammed his elbow down so hard on the table that there was no way it couldn't hurt. He winced. Then he snarled, Your corn is shucked, Bear Claw. Bear Claw grinned. Your corn is meal, Your Honor. And without a bang or a whistle, the match began. The two men, equal of bulk and beard, bore into each other with seething and grunting. Around them, the cheers and chanting swelled. Pulverize him, Bear Claw, flatten his pancakes. Nobody was cheering for the mayor. Johnny saw Aunt pushing her way through the crowd, carrying Chestnut. Bear Claw, stop this. Don't be a fool. Bear Claw made an expression with his cheekbones that looked like a shrug. Then he clamped his jaw and pressed harder into his opponent's wrist. The two men were well matched, and the mayor might have won had he not been drunk. Several times he had Bear Claw nearly pinned, but then he got sloppy, and the big man threw him off. Jocko edged in and lowered his head to table level so he could look up into Bear Claw's face. Let it go, he said almost in a whisper. Just let him win. Bear Claw flashed him a look of equal parts ice and fire. Then he made one massive grunt and threw his entire weight into the poor mayor's arm. There was a popping sound. Bear Claw's arm bent in a way that no arm should go. His wrists went limp and flopped. He flopped onto the table, and he cried out in pain and tumbled to the floor. The crowd went wild, hooting and shouting. They tried to raise Bear Claw up into a victory stance, but he pushed them away and gaped in horror at what he had done to the man lying on the floor. He squatted down, but the mayor leapt to his feet, his arm dangling like a wet rag. Don't touch me, Bear Claw. You haven't hurt me. I can climb the silo. He staggered to one side, then righted himself. Watch me. Then he lunged for the door. People jumped out of his way as if fleeing a charging horn pig. He knocked a few over anyway. Some tried to restrain him, but he pushed through them. Reaching the door, he shoved it open with his shoulder and lumbered out into the cold, damp air. Bear Claw looked at Johnny. He's gonna do it, isn't he? He is, Johnny replied. We have to stop him. Outside, the rain was slunching down in earnest. The last muddy drifts of snow surrendering to the rivulets and into the meadow. Burleyman was limping now, and twice he stumbled, pulling himself up out of the mud with his left arm only, his right hand dangling helplessly. Bearclaw ran after him, calling his name, followed by Johnny, Jocko, Ant, and a few others. Maggie Mender, the scullery maids, Tiller Hogpen, but most of the town people stayed inside, crowding the door frame to witness the spectacle. The mayor reached the silo and grabbed the first hold with his left hand. "You can't stop me, Bearclaw," he cried, and he was right. By the time Bearclaw arrived, the man had already ascended 3 notches, his ankles out of reach from the ground. Bearclaw turned with a helpless look on his face. "I can't climb it," he said. "You have to go after him, Johnny." A blast of wind threw a handful of rain scattering like pebbles against the silo's iron wall. Johnny surveyed the ascent. The mayor was trying to climb the segment with conduits and chutes, the same place he had failed the first attempt 5 summers ago. It wouldn't work, even sober with 2 good hands on a clear sunny day. But there was a thin lip of ledge near the top, where the segments had been welded. Johnny knew only one way to get there. Burleyman was no longer moving. His feet were jammed into a hatch cleat. He had reached a point where there was nothing to hold. Only the curved, round body of the dome itself, and to this he clung like a child to its mother. Johnny circled the silo until he found the footholds that led to the sunbeams. The paint was chipped and faded, but he could see the birds protruding above. Up he shimmied, while another blast of wind threw rain into his face. When he grabbed the first bird, it snapped off in his hands and fell to the ground. No time to fear now. He grasped the next with caution, but it was stable. Bird by bird, he pulled himself up until he reached the ledge. There were no handholds from that point on. He had to inch his way with his arms pressed to the wall until he was directly above the mayor. "Burleyman!" he called. Burleyman craned his neck and looked up. "Corn damn you, Johnny Arcane! How'd you get up there?" "I climbed the sunbeams and I held onto the birds." "What are you going to do now, Burleyman? Are you going to come down? Are you going to come up? Or are you going to go down?" Burleyman started to cry. "I'm not going up or down, Johnny. I'm going to stay here until I die." Across the meadow, approaching from the log house, Johnny saw a white circle moving. The Hoop Girls, bringing the hoop. They stumbled in the puddles, picked themselves up, stumbled again. The hoop listed from side to side as they pulled against each other, shouting, "This way! No, this way!" Eventually, they reached the foot of the tower and raised the canvas high. "You can let go now, Burleyman. You don't have to die. The Hoop Girls will catch you." Burleyman didn't budge. He pressed his body into the wall like he wanted to pass through it. A thought crossed Johnny's mind. It made him smile just to think of it. "There will be running water in King Corn," he proclaimed. The mayor looked up. A squall passed over his face. Then he suddenly relaxed. His arms opened like wings, and his knees buckled. Just before he fell, he let out a holler. "And there will be cows!" Johnny watched his trajectory until he struck the canvas, bounced 3 times, and was lowered gently to the ground. Then he felt his own knees buckle, his head begin to spin. "Hoop girls! Hoop girls!" he called. "I think you might need to catch me, too." The mayor convalesced at Maggie Mender's. That night she wrapped his broken wrist in plaster and gauze, while he sniffled and wept and mumbled things like, "You can't teach a bird how to fly unless you give it wings," and "It's not poison if it doesn't kill you." When at last his head began to droop and his nose to rattle, she rolled him over into her big 4-poster bed, climbed in next to him, which was something she had always wanted to do. 2 days later, he woke with a ravenous appetite. She fixed him a tall stack of pancakes, which he devoured in 3 bites. Then he stood up, knocking over the chair, and said, "I've got to get back to the Longhouse. We have a spring fest to plan."